You're listening to the 4-Phase Cycle podcast with your hosts, Dr. Alex and Megan of ZESTY Ginger. If you're looking to naturally balance hormones and learn how to work with your body instead of against it, you've definitely come to the right place. As a duo of an integrative MD and a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and best friends, we use the 4 phases of the female cycle in combination with functional lab work and mindset practices to transform the lives of the women we work with.
We also have a whole lot of fun along the way. If you're new around here, it's best to start with season 1 before jumping around and plan to roll up your sleeves. Showing up for ourselves and enjoying our lives is what good health is all about. Just a quick reminder though, this information is not intended to diagnose, manage, or treat disease. Always consult with your doctor before making changes. Hey there, I just had an amazing interview with Shawn Wells. So he is the author of The Energy Formula, which I have here in my lap. It says at the top, the secrets only a biochemist, dietitian, and certified sports nutritionist could know. And secrets he does know. And this book, like I said in the interview, it's not just a book, it's an experience. It has so many amazing things in it, and surveys and lists, and it's colored. It's really an amazing book. We got to talk on the interview some surprising things that he shared about keys to longevity not being what you would think at all. The problem with research and how it's just done on males. He was really speaking our language there. And in that context, we did talk about fasting and keto and that kind of thing for women, keeping their cycle in mind. Another amazing thing that he shared that's in line with what we talk about. And exercise snacks. I had never heard of that one. Biohactivism. So many good things. He also talked about his top supplement picks as a formulator, things that people could do if they're in a place where they really just need some energy first to then go do the deeper work that he's sharing in his book. So, Shawn Wells, he is the world's leading nutritional biochemist and expert on health optimization. A lot of credentials behind his name: MPH, LDN, RD, CISSN, FISSN. He has formulated over 500 supplements, food, beverages, and cosmeceuticals, and patented 10 novel ingredients, and is now known as an ingredientologist, the scientist of ingredients. So formerly a chief clinical dietitian with over a decade of clinical experience, he has counseled thousands of people on innovative health solutions such as keto, paleo, fasting, and supplements. He's also personally overcome various health issues, including Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, depression, insomnia, obesity, and a pituitary tumor. As a world-renowned thought leader on mitochondrial health, he has been paid to speak on 5 different continents. His insights have been prominently featured in documentaries, nationally syndicated radio programs, and regularly on morning television and on the 4-Phase Cycle podcast, of course. His expertise can help any health-conscious individual to better manage stress and experience higher performance and more energy through utilizing his practical research-backed solutions. You are not going to want to miss this one. Let's go talk to Shawn. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to the 4-Phase Cycle podcast. I have Shawn Wells with me here today. Welcome, Shawn.
Hello, what's up, Megan? Zesty Ginger.
Yeah, zesty, feeling zesty this morning at 9:30, 8:30 your time. And I'm really excited to talk to you about your book. I have my copy right here for anybody who's seeing the actual video.
Yeah, the energy
formula. And like I said this morning in my Instagram post, this is not just a book, it's an experience. It has all sorts of quizzes and guides and details and breakouts. So we're going to get into it today. But Shawn, I would love to just hear a little bit more of the backstory for you, how you became a thought leader on mitochondrial health and energy and wrote this book. How'd you get here?
That's a great question. There's always like the hero's journey when someone's becomes like an expert or, as you said, thought leader in their area, right? And for me, I grew up bullied, very overweight, depressed, so bad that I was suicidal quite often. And then getting into college, I got very sick with autoimmune issues, Epstein-Barr, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Hashimoto's. I spent about 6 months in bed, inflamed and in pain, not thinking I would ever be able to go back to class and finish up, again being suicidal and depressed. Um, and it was the ketogenic diet over 20 years ago that helped me get out of that. As I was so metabolically dysfunctional, I was so broken down, that helped me get out of that. And I ended up getting very into like immune system supplements and working on rebuilding my immunity, and then certainly getting back to class. And then later, I had a brain tumor, and that got me very into like paleo and biohacking and blood work and doing a number of things like that, like certainly nootropics and different ingredients that would help with brain health, like ketones, and that's a big part of it. And then about a year and a half ago, I started a plant medicine journey. My first experience like really shifted me. And then that shifted the book. I ended up rewriting the book several times. I really don't go into plant medicine in the book, but it shifted my self love and where I was appreciating myself and what I was trying to accomplish in life. Like prior to that point, I think a lot of the biohacking and the sickness I was dealing with was me pushing so hard, me trying to level up, me trying to get love through achievement. And I was literally working like 80 to 100 hours a week. I kept getting into bigger and bigger rooms to speak on documentaries, on TV, doing masterminds, traveling the world, making seven-figure salaries, having multiple businesses, having all these accolades and titles, and I was still miserable. And so it wasn't until the plant medicine that I really was able to shift pretty massively. And then I saw that all these biohacks as an optimization on a healthy basis or a healthy foundation of self-love, of inner peace, of doing that deeper work that I talk about in the book with like gratitude and breath work and meditation and these things that you think are or people may tend to think as less hardcore, less scientific, but these are the things that have really transformed me, and I definitely give a lot of airtime to in the book, and I think are absolutely critical as the foundation is that inner peace, that self-love, and then all these cool biohacks with the genetics, the blood work, the cold plunges, the supplements, all that stuff is cool on top of that high intensity interval training, all those things I go through in the book. But that foundation is so important.
Oh, you just made a really good neurological connection for me with the self-love, the biohacking on top of self-love. And I think that's what we see missing most often is it's more likely someone will be heading in one direction, like they're all into biohacking, or they're all into self-love. And the combo of the two, that's really powerful.
Yeah, I do a room on Clubhouse with a friend, Cole Whitty, that she talks about the intersection of mysticism and science. And I like that idea a lot, where I'm actually working also on bringing science to that plant medicine space by doing stacks for like what would be pre, peri, post journey doses. What would the supplements look like around microdosing and things like that. So those are things that I'm working on as well. Um, but absolutely, like that's been the game changer for me. And even biohacking, the word itself has triggered me in the past because I, and I'm actually on Clubhouse at Biohacking, so this is ironic. Um, but biohacking triggered me because the word hacking, I thought about like, what's the quick fix? Like, how do I change myself because I hate myself? And I literally used to have a consistent vision of taking a knife or a cleaver or something and cutting the fat off my body. That's how much I hated my body. I always thought about my body like it was betraying me because it was fat, because it was tired, because it was inflamed, because I had all these autoimmune conditions. And that's so untrue. I mean, for what I was doing to my body physically and mentally, my body was so amazing and resilient to hang in there like it did. And so biohacking is a word I've had to like work my way through because I like it's a word that people understand and it does bring people into this fold of optimization, especially I feel like very driven competitive males. It tends to be a more masculine energy. But the word has been evolving, right? Like we've seen like biohacking used to be like devices in your body, like magnets in your fingers and chips in your head. And like, so you could interact with computers and devices better. And then it became like, you know, peptides and stem cells. And then it became bulletproof coffee. And, you know, then it became breath work. And now it's like journaling. It's like, wow, biohacking has really evolved. And it's really gone from like the most extreme masculine energy, almost like an android robotic energy, to masculine to like now like a much more feminine energy. And so I've been trying to evolve with this word, but it's an interesting word to look at and the idea of hacking. So I definitely don't believe in the quick fix. I don't believe that we're broken. I used to do a talk because of my depression and being open about my depression that my broken is my beautiful. It's what connects me to people, what gives me empathy and gives me depth. And so I don't look at it as like a negative anymore. I don't look at my body as a negative anymore. It's incredibly resilient to go through all the things that I put it through. And I even think about fat very differently. I don't think about a fat as like some terrible thing. I think about fat as like this incredibly dynamic tissue that interacts with muscle and bone and it evolves and moves and you know can cushion you when you fall and store energy in the most efficient way at 9 calories per gram instead of 4 calories per gram and it takes in toxins and hides them away and protects you from them and it stores vitamins and all these things that this incredible tissue does. And now I'm thankful for that tissue.
Thankful for the tissue. I love it. I got to meet you in person, I don't know, a month ago or so. And so you just said that even up until a couple years ago, you were, even though with all your success, you were pretty miserable still. So you're, to me, a very laid back, kind, great energy guy. Was it not like that a year ago, or is this just your nature?
When I say miserable, I don't mean all the time, but I was I think energetically I was giving my energy to a lot of people, helping a lot of people. I got energy back from that, but it's the quiet times that I was very tough on myself. Very tough. You know, if anyone talked to you like you talk to you, you wouldn't be their friend. And I was brutal as a friend to myself. It was never perfect. It was never good enough. So the quiet times were the hard times. You know, when I was out helping and serving and speaking and doing all those things, I definitely got good energy from that. And I'm so blessed to have been doing that for years. And like I said, I had this book like basically all done with all the stuff I've been learning to do for like the past 20 years. But then this transformation that took place in me, this shift in my heart, like really shifted like the tone of the book. Now the book I feel is very holistic on its energy perspective. Like it actually starts like super scientific and kind of gets more woo, if you will, as it goes. It goes like it's an acronym for energy, and it's experiment. So that goes into like the biohacking, bio individuality. It's not one size fits all. You're an N of one. looking at blood work, epigenetics, listening to your body, those kinds of things. Then it gets into nutrition. I cover keto, paleo, Mediterranean, carnivore, vegan, and again, looking at what works for you. Then going into exercise and looking at hacks like high intensity interval training versus low intensity steady state. Really cool hacks like blood flow restriction, which is also called occlusion therapy, um, intraset stretching, all the where the cool science is on improving strength and hypertrophy. Then getting into routines, so circadian rhythm, morning routines, nighttime routines, and what that looks like with sleep hygiene and creating a sleep fortress. Growth, which is now it's like kind of getting like into more mindset with stoicism and having a resilient mind. I cover extended fasting, intermittent fasting, and nootropics as well in there. And then the last chapter is your tribe, and that gets into community and connection, and then putting all these pieces together. But I feel like there's a lot of stories of my own in there of what I've been through in my life, and depression and being morbidly obese, being anorexic. I went from 300 pounds to 150 pounds. And I was weighing myself after I peed to see if I was less weight.
Wow.
It was an obsession. And again, it was just me being so tough on me. And then I was orthorexic at one point where I was 220 pounds working out 4 hours a day. And I had to get my protein immediately, and, all the things like that you go through with that. So I've been through it. And so the book is like just, uh, putting all those things together with my heart shift, and definitely giving that platform to these things like journaling, meditation, breath work, these parasympathetic activities, along with creating community and tribe and what that looks like and how important those things are. I mean, literally, the greatest study of all time, the Harvard study that's over 80 years running, where they looked at generations of people, and they looked at like blood work and genetics and socioeconomic status and geography and all the things. And the number one predictor of longevity was quality of relationships. So,
That's super cool.
yeah, so that's something that I think like, I have the science for even the woo in there. It's really all the pieces that I've figured out to help me get energy back in my life.
I love when people bring science to the woo, because I love the woo, and then it really helps back up my cause, Shawn. So thank you.
You got it.
So before we got on here today, I was talking to you about, I saw nutrition is in the book, and I saw fasting was in the book, and keto, and I got a little nervous, right? We talk to the women in our audience a lot about the type of women who end up seeing us are ready or in a place to really add some good complex carbohydrates back in, or fasting is not a good idea for them. And I would love for you to share a bit, because I know you've done a lot of research on this and you do have the women perspective in mind, whereas a lot of the suggestions I've seen before are based more on the male 24-hour cycle, and kind of forgetting about the female 28-day ish, right? So what have you found? I know you've looked into this a lot. We could say keto or fasting, but what are the recommendations when it comes to women?
That's first off, that's a great question. And probably, I mean, one, I worked clinically as a chief clinical dietitian for over a decade in long-term care as well as acute care hospitals. So I have a very strong clinical background, and I very much appreciate taking a look at bioindividuality, especially when it comes to the female body and its unique differences versus the male. And a lot of research is male based. And I'd say probably 95+%. And I've funded some of that research with supplements. And I will say that when it comes to funding, like, you're in a situation where you want to fund female research, but it becomes difficult when you're adding in an extra X factor when women are at different points in their menstrual cycle. And it just creates like it's difficult. And what sucks is like a lot of data, like unfortunately, is college age males that are athletic, that are 18 to 24 years old, fairly affluent, fairly well educated. And when it comes to psychology research, they're all from a psychology department, so there's selection bias. And so this is the data we're looking at. But it is what it is, as they say. But like, we are seeing more studies now that are involving women that are, carefully controlled, and they definitely do cost more. And I'm looking at that research, and I've definitely worked with a lot of clients and seen what works and what doesn't work by and large. And in the book, I definitely cover male and female. I cover bioindividuality. I cover extended intermittent fasting and keto, and doing cyclical and targeted ketogenic dieting, what that looks like, and metabolic flexibility, where you're having carbs and you're going through different phases of using carbohydrates as a tool. I'm very much not anti-carb. All that said, I do have a bonus on energyformula.com that is about a 25-page, well-researched guide that I've had Dr. Kayla Osterhoff, BioCurious Kayla, Dasha, like I sent it to Dr. Mindy Pelz. Like it's well reviewed. And what I would say is, it depends. One of the things that I look at is how metabolically flexible you are, how consistent your menstrual cycle is, your HPA axis that you were talking about prior to our call. Um, Looking at all of those things, and it just depends whether you're pre, post, perimenopausal, whether you're too lean can be an issue too, whether you have a history with eating disorders. So there's a number of things to look at. And I lean towards with women, if they are going to use some type of fasting, not going past a 24-hour fast on occasion. I lean towards even doing an intermittent fast if they're going to try it. But again, like some of those other pieces have to be in place. Um, and it's an individual journey, and I definitely recommend doing it with someone like you that's guiding them on that process. One thing I do like about the intermittent fasting idea is that you can get snacking under control, and that also, it's a mindset thing that helps. That I feel like when you can get snacking under control, when you can keep yourself disciplined into a window of eating, they call it time restricted eating or time restricted feeding when it's in an intermittent fashion, that you can have greater willpower to do other decisions in your life, to do other tasks in your life when you accomplish this, because it's very difficult. I know, coming from a place of having been like a binge eater, having been an overeater, and then having been disordered eating, that I know what that's like. And so for me, that does work now. And for certain people I've worked with, different things work differently. That's all I'd say. It's not an easy equation. I go through kind of like a branch of like several layers of like, if you're this, then this, if you're that, then this, but it's not just straightforward. And that's all part of what I cover. Like, I mean, right out of the gate in the book, the experimentation chapter is all about kind of exploring what works for you and what you can do consistently over the long term. That's what matters. Like, what is going to keep you healthy? What's going to be a lifestyle? What will you be compliant with long term? That's what matters most. And that's what I support. Like, so I don't push any diet. I don't push any type of these, like even the things I get into, like cold plunges and hot saunas and um, like fasting, like ketogenic, like those things can actually become, they can be eustresses, meaning a positive stress, but when done with someone that is overflowing in their stress bucket, their allostatic load, they can become a distress, and it can be counterproductive. A eustress is like a hormetic stress that has a positive benefit to your body, but when someone isn't in the right place, these things that can be good things for other people can end up just being additional stresses to your body and counterproductive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, would you say the intention, it's like the intention behind it and the self-love piece you said. So if you're running from something to
100%.
cold plunging every day, or right, if it's like I have a checklist of 80 things I need to do every morning to get away from what's in my brain, maybe not the best. And maybe this is helping me shift my perspective. I mean, maybe coming at it from a place of self-love, something like fasting. And although I fall into many of those categories, that's not ideal. But
That's a wonderful point, is intention. And a lot of times when I was doing dieting, it was again like from a place of like hatred of myself. And now that I'm in a different place and I appreciate the resiliency of my body, and if I decide to cut calories or do some fasting for me, or do some kind of manipulation of my diet, I'm coming from it in a very different mindset, and that does make all the difference for sure. So that's a great point.
in the experimentation chapter, Shawn, you said much of our stress comes from being distracted.
Mm,
Can you speak to that point?
yeah, that's a massive one. I mean, obviously, with cell phones and devices and notifications and emails and texts and WhatsApp and Signal, and there's like 100 things that are coming at you like 24/7. We are very rarely in the now. We are very rarely present, um, and in a mindful state. And so when we're constantly distracted, we're never very present and focused. And that creates so many problems, like not only in terms of you being able to be productive and get work done, but also you getting into a parasympathetic state and able to rest and digest and relax. And when we're distracted, we're in a more sympathetic state because our mind is jumping from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And it's a hyper vigilance that we're put into. So it's not healthy for the body. It's us chasing dopamine, right? And it's these addictive hits, like when we see the likes on Facebook or on Instagram, and you're left with a situation again where you're not being present with the world around you. Like you're literally walking around, like there's right now I'm looking out my window and there's trees and there's a beautiful lake and green grass and there's fresh air and there's so much to enjoy and take in. But if I'm distracted with my phone, I'm distracted with all the things I have going on, I'm not taking that in. I'm not being mindful. I'm not having gratitude. I'm not being present. And how much of your life can pass you by when you're in that state. And then I would beg you, like, you're also missing the beauty, you're missing your friendships, you're missing the connection to nature, to your friends, to your pets, you're missing being really productive with your work. I mean, it's literally like this is covered in the 4-Hour Work Week with Tim Ferriss. It's also covered in Deep Work by Cal Newport, that you need to like turn off the cell phone, turn off the notifications, even turn off the Wi-Fi on your computer, and get like a solid 2 hours of work done, as Cal Newport talks about, and knock out one big task. Or you can use what's called the Pomodoro technique, which is a little bit shorter. But it's all about having focused, non-distracted time so you can get things done and you will feel accomplished. You'll feel less buried. So it's just, for so many reasons, we're getting more and more distracted, and it's really at a cost to our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health, is what I'm saying. It really is killing everything.
Do you have a really set standard that you use around, turning things off for a certain time in the morning or a morning? I'm sure you do have a solid morning routine. Share some of that with us.
Yeah. So if you can imagine the alarm clock going off, the bam, 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 someone like they got the cortisol and epinephrine and they're rolling out of bed and they're exhausted, and because they stayed up late watching Game of Thrones or the ball game or whatever it is, and they're we're the only species that makes ourselves stay up late, that makes ourselves stay awake when we're tired. And so our brain cells aren't firing as fast because they're in a state of insufficient cellular energy. It's called ICE, or in the brain, it can also be called brain energy gap. And our neurons aren't firing as well. They're in a state of acute insulin resistance, and they're not able to take up glucose's energy as easily. So we're reaching for the caffeine, we're reaching for the sugar in our coffee, or the Monster, or the honey bun, or the donut, because we're just exhausted. And then we're like, going to our car, and we're, rushing through traffic. And then, and we're checking our phone, and we've got all these messages, and, I've got emails that get into work, and I'm digging through my emails. I'm still getting messages. What's this on Facebook and Instagram? Super distracted, but I'm exhausted. And I'm like, I'm just holding on for lunch. This is so tough. And then I finally get to lunch, and, I'm going to have pizza and Coca-Cola because, I have decision fatigue. I don't have the energy. I'll get to better decisions tomorrow. I just need to hang on for today. And then I'm go back to work, and I'm still exhausted. And then I go to the vending machine at about 2, 3 o'clock because I can't hang on much. And I get a Snickers bar and another Coca-Cola. Then I get back in the car, fight traffic, turn up the music because I'm feeling exhausted. Finally get home, flop down on the couch, and I turn on Game of Thrones or the ball game. Maybe have a beer to try and chill out. And this is like an existence that a lot of people go through. And if you just give me like 10 minutes of the light comes on and gets slowly brighter, you can buy lamps or cell phone apps that do this. The chimes come in and get slowly louder and closer together. Again, you can get lamps or apps that do this. And you wake up slowly, you do some box breathing, a 4 to 8 second box, which is like 4 seconds in, 4 second hold, 4 second out, 4 second hold. You do that several times. Then you do some gratitude. I'm so thankful that I woke up this morning. I'm thankful that I have a job to go to. I'm thankful for my dog licking my face. I'm thankful that I have a partner next to me, if that's the case. I'm thankful for all these friends in my life. I'm thankful for so many things, that I have food to eat, that I have heat, that I have a car, that I'm listening to this podcast, whatever it is. And then I go into affirmations because, again, that voice, your voice, is the most powerful voice in your life. So change it from the inner critic to the inner champion. And I say, I am, and whatever follows that is the most powerful thing you can say to yourself. So I say, I am beautiful. I am sexy. I am happy. I am successful. Because I used to think those were achievements, that when I got to this certain weight, I would be sexy. When I got to this certain amount of money, then I'd be successful. When I got to this certain thing or job or car, then I'd be happy. Those are all states of being that you can have right now, just by saying, I am happy, I am successful, I am sexy. And then I get up and I do some light stretching, ground myself in my body. And then I grab a full glass of water. And then that's 10 minutes. And my day has been transformed. Then I get in my car and, I get to work, and I do the 2 hours of focused work from 8 to 10. And now I've knocked out all of those things. I've knocked out one major task that, quite frankly, if you were distracted the whole day, you wouldn't get this 2 hour block of amazingness done in your 8 hours. You're not ever going to get 2 highly productive hours if you're distracted all day long. And so you've knocked that out. And then for me, like at 10 o'clock, that's my window. I eat from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. with my intermittent fasting, because I eat during the daylight hours, which has to do with circadian rhythm, which has to do with Dr. Satchin Panda's data. And so and then I don't have decision fatigue, and I am maybe going for a walk at lunch and getting some fresh air, and then I'm really doing highly productive work. I feel accomplished. I feel proud of myself. I love myself. I'm energized. And it really started with just 10 minutes. And an important piece of that too is also getting to bed on time, that I talk about, like that proper sleep hygiene, so that we're not in a state of acute or eventually chronic insulin resistance if you have sleep debt built up. Um, and that's a game changer in terms of like going to bed on time at the same time every day, including on the weekend, so you don't have what's called social jet lag, where you're staying up 2, 3, 4 hours later on the weekend. It's just like traveling to Europe and coming back. So instead of doing that, I'm going to bed at a consistent time. My bedroom is a sleep fortress that revolves purely around sleep and maybe, sex, but that's it. You don't have arguments in there. You don't have a TV in there. You don't have long discussions in there. You don't have, like, literally that bedroom, like when you walk through that threshold, should be about relaxation. And so that's important in creating that sleep fortress. And so that, again, just 10 minutes, and I feel like I can transform your life. And that's a just great morning routine. Yes, you can add cold plunges and exercise and, podcasts and, journaling and all these kinds of things that are amazing. But I mean, you can see like where it starts so easily, and that can really transform your
What are exercise snacks, Shawn? I heard you talk
day.
about exercise snacks.
That is a great question. It's a funny term, isn't it? So I cover that in my hidden chapter. Again, that's part of the bonuses that come free when you go through energyformula.com. But I cover like all this ancestral movement. But one of the biggest things, this new data is coming out, that exercise snacks. So that's an idea where instead of, it's great that you go to the gym potentially, or go play a sport for an hour, whatever it is a day, but it's hard to undo our sedentary nature and that sitting syndrome and the impact that's having on our bodies. And the data is coming out that exercise snacks, meaning doing movement throughout the day, is much better than just doing 45 minutes or an hour of exercise one time a day, because we are so sedentary. We're on the couch, we're sitting in a chair, we're at the office, we're sitting in the car. So yes, it's great to exercise for that hour if that's what you're doing, but it would be better still if you were finding ways to move throughout the day, doing some air squats, once an hour, doing some burpees, like taking a walk at least, these things where we're moving our body throughout the day, finding a chance every hour to get up, to stretch, to move, to, go through some body weight only exercises, etc. That's powerful. Even like if you work from home, like, going out in your backyard like a couple times a day and doing jumping jacks or sprints or, things like that. It doesn't have to be very difficult, but that's what exercise snacks are.
I like that snack. Okay, so you are a formulator, so I definitely want to ask you some supplement questions, and just note for everybody, when you get the book, inside there's formulator corner. So Shawn explains in detail, which is really cool. A lot of our audience do love the supplements, so you can check that out. I do also love, though, that you said in the book, having more energy isn't ultimately about better supplements. It's about becoming a better person.
Hmm. Yeah. So yes, I definitely agree with that. Like living an energized life, it's something I get into in the book. That also, as I mentioned earlier, that term biohacking, that can be a little controversial. One way I flipped it too that I didn't mention before is that so biohacking is hacking your biology, and it's a mashup term. And there's the idea also that's called hacktivism, where guys like Edward Snowden, Julian Assange, Anonymous, some of these groups that did hacking, that did it for the social good, is a concept that's called hacktivism. And so in the book, I create this super mashup term called biohactivism, where we're hacking our own biology for the social good, where it's not just an N of one, a quantified self, where it's not just a selfish pursuit of how do I improve my um, performance? How do I live a more, limitless life, as I talk about? But to me, all of that comes from living your purpose and like interacting with the world around you, and having that deep network, the friendships, and also like um you really having like the ultimate expression of whatever your passion is, and that has to be done through other people. Like that's being self-actualized, like on Maslow's pyramid, and helping others actualize themselves. And so like that's the idea of like when you have an energized life, it's when you're deeply interacting with other people. These people that are in the blue zones, like Sardinia, Italy, that are living past 100, they're called supercentenarians. They aren't doing peptides and coffee ground enemas and, red light, saunas and whatever. Like they have incredible purpose and they have deep connection. That's what's in common. Yes, there's like Mediterranean diet and there may be red wine and all those kinds of things. But the deepest, most important part is that they live with purpose. They don't just retire and die. They live with purpose. They have a role in their community, and they have community. They have the people around them. They have these meals with, 8 to 12 people. They make the food. They laugh every night. And yes, when they eat this food, that's good food, and they eat or drink the red wine, it's over the course of 2 or 3 hours. It's while they're laughing. There's a psychosomatic connection to it all that's anchored, that when they have food or wine, it's nourishing because of the experience that they're going through. And we can have experiences in the reverse in the West where we may eat even healthy food, but it could trigger inflammation because we're psychosomatically anchoring to, being in traffic and eating, or like having an argument and eating, or watching TV and something stressful is on TV and eating. And they're in a very different role. So I feel like they could almost eat things that are unhealthy and be healthy, and we could eat things that are healthy and be unhealthy. So it's just because of the environment and what our mind is processing at the times we're consuming these things, that has a massive impact.
And for people who they want the growth and they want to get to this place of connection, and maybe they're not quite there yet, or they feel they need some support, their energy is really crappy, whatever. And I know in the growth chapter you talk about nootropics, or what supplements, or what's something that someone could use to give them this boost, and then hopefully, in my world, right, then you do dig a little bit deeper.
Mm. Yeah, so supplements, I mean, some of the ones that I think like right out of the gate that almost everyone should be taking, again, like, bio individuality, but vitamin D3, really important. We're seeing that certainly with COVID. It's much more than a vitamin. It's really a hormone that's a part of this whole hormonal milieu, and it's involved in neurotransmitters and really like thousands of things in the body in terms of pathways and coenzymes and all the things that are happening. Vitamin D is super impactful. So taking 5,000 to 10,000 IUs of that a day, preferably with a vitamin K2, I think is important, especially if you're living in the northern half of the United States. If you're not getting enough light, if you're darker skinned, like African Americans, are much more likely to be deficient in vitamin D. You are actually going to be, as a ginger, are going to be more likely to get higher levels of vitamin D because you have less melanin. And so all that's important because, as we've seen with vitamin D and immunity, with mood, with depression, with adiposity, being overweight, insulin resistance, all these things, vitamin D, super important. Yeah.
Before you move to the next one, so you can get too much vitamin D, correct? Like, so there's like, go test, see what your levels are, and
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, exactly. I think 5,000 is a high dose that is conservative enough. When I talk about 10,000, that would be if you're someone that really has probably a clinical level of being deficient over a period of time. Yeah. So that's a great point. And multivitamin, especially one that has coenzyme B vitamins, meaning the activated forms of these B vitamins. So methylcobalamin for B12, P5P for B6, and really importantly, 5-methyl tetrahydrofolate for folic acid, because people have the MTHFR gene potentially, but we all have a little bit more difficulty converting these B vitamins into their active forms. So that's really important. You get a multi that does that, and some of the premium brands like Designs for Health, Thorne, brands like that tend to do that, the premium multis. Creatine, even though people may think this is like a bodybuilder supplement for power and strength, which it does help with, and there's close to 1,000 studies on that show its efficacy and safety. We're also seeing creatine as being critical for reproductive health, for bone health, for brain health, helping with traumatic brain injury, helping with neurodegenerative conditions. And we're also seeing it as a powerful methylator that protects against DNA damage and cancer. So I'm a big fan of creatine. And then probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics, all collectively called synbiotics that help with gut health. So probiotics would be those short chain fibers that will help the growth of probiotics, the healthy bacteria. Probiotics I would get in a spore form or microencapsulated form, so they're protected, because probiotics will degrade with heat, light, and moisture. So that's a way to be careful with that, with the spore or microencapsulated forms. And then postbiotics are butyrate. So probiotics actually make the short chain fatty acid butyrate, which is really important to gut health, and can actually make ketones too, beta hydroxybutyrate. So we're finding butyrate as being a really important factor in our health and the gut-brain axis and all that stuff. So collectively, they're called synbiotics. So that's something to look at. And then I would say dihydroberberine. Like when you look up Shawn Wells, one of the top things is berberine, because I've been talking about it for a long time. Berberine is the natural form of metformin, essentially. And you've probably heard of this glucose disposal agent with diabetics, but also an anti-aging. It's a very powerful anti-aging tool. When you are disposing of glucose, activating AMPK, AMP kinase, it's just powerfully anti-aging for a number of reasons. One of which is glycation, which is blood sugar damage, elevated insulin over time. Most of us, it's almost 90% of the population in the West is metabolically dysfunctional. And so that also means we have mitochondrial dysfunction, and we do have insufficient cellular energy. We tend towards chronic fatigue, etc. So to have something that will lower blood glucose, lower elevated insulin, lower inflammation, lower glycation, blood sugar damage, and allow for you to improve mitochondrial function, improve cellular energy. It's incredible. And berberine has been shown to outperform metformin head to head. That's natural form. And then I was involved in a patent on dihydroberberine, which is the active metabolite that berberine converts into in the body. And some people have GI distress from metformin or berberine. Dihydroberberine doesn't have that problem. It's about 5 to 10 times more bioavailable, so you can take much lower doses. And then it lasts about twice as long in the plasma, so you have to take it less frequently. So I would definitely recommend at least berberine, but dihydroberberine would be even more ideal. And to me, it's one of the most powerful anti-aging tools that we can take. And I would really recommend that almost everyone take it. It's not just for diabetics, just like metformin. I mean, people are seeing, in all these models that they've done with biomarkers it's adding the equivalent of several years to their life. So I definitely would encourage that one as well.
Amazing. Great rundown. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's wrap up with what would you say your top tool or your top tip? outside of the supplement category, but of all these different tools that you use, I know you had written about like scripting your day, or is there something that you just can't live without to make each day amazing?
I am going to throw you a big time curveball here.
Let's do
Big
it.
time. It's the most untalked about hack that can truly transform your life. Is super simple, might seem really weird, but I'm going to tell it to you right now.
Great.
So it's sleep tape. Literally taping your mouth when you sleep. And that might sound really weird. And this tape is, you can buy like essentially it's like a paper tape if you've ever used that, like a lot less adhesive. You can buy little strips that just go on your lips, but for me, where I have more facial hair, I like to use like a longer, like a roll, like a paper tape. And it's so profound, even if you're not apneic. Okay, like, which means like snoring, sleep apnea can create anoxic situations where you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, to your tissues. Literally over time, this creates severe insulin resistance, can destroy tissues, can cause heart attacks and strokes. I mean, it's literally a killer to be snoring. It can kill you. So it's something to be taken very seriously, and you should see a sleep doctor, a specialist. You can get like oral devices or CPAPs or those kinds of things. But for the rest of us, we are still breathing through our mouth way too much, and it's not ideal. We're meant to be nasal breathers, so we're not getting as much oxygen in. We're not in enough of a parasympathetic state as a result, like when we're breathing through our mouth. We're not moisturizing the air like we should. We're not getting at the right temperature like it should. And we're getting more inflammation in the tissues. And again, it's just triggering that sympathetic nervous system state. And we're just getting less oxygen in. And so when we switch to being a full mouth breather or a full nose breather, sorry, through the night, like we're going to wake up dramatically more refreshed. I'm telling you, like, huge difference on like HRV, huge difference in how you feel refreshed. And over time, you don't necessarily need the tape anymore. Your body will become more trained to this. Another time that I would recommend doing this, and again, this is even weirder, is during exercise, because a lot of us tend to mouth breathe through exercise. And again, this is a very bad habit. The mouth is meant to be a backup solution so that we don't die if the nasal pathways are obstructed. It's not meant to be the primary solution. So it's important that we can recover better from exercise, that we can oxygenate better through exercise, et cetera. And not only recover like post exercise, I mean, recover between bouts better, like between sets, between reps, between high intensity interval training, whatever it is. We'll recover better if it's through the nose. So, this might be weird to do at the gym, but, if you're training like at your house, or, if you're hiking or something, it's something to think about, is taping the mouth and training the body to breathe through the nose.
Were you a mouth breather before? Like you said, you felt the difference. Yes, you were. So
Massive.
why do you think we would be breathing through our mouth at night if that's not the natural?
It's not unnatural, and so it's very common to do that. It's just a habit that people have. It's hard to say like why people do it, but I would say the majority of people do it. It's not just people that snore. I mean, obviously that's a massive one that again can have severe health implications, but most people, um, especially when they're stressed, go to mouth breathing. And so it's a really important way to teach your body to de-stress and help your body to recover, to relax, to improve its function by nasal breathing.
Oh, I'm going to test it out. I thought it didn't apply to me because I wasn't a snorer. So now I'm excited to test it out.
Mhm. Yeah, I wasn't a snorer either, and it still felt like I got like an extra 2 hours of sleep,
Oh,
and my HRV dramatically improved.
amazing. Great tip. Thanks, John.
Mhm. Yeah, no
Well,
problem.
tell everybody where to find the book, where to find you, all the good stuff.
Cool. Yeah, so energyformula.com, you get the book, I have the Audible, the hardcover, the ebook. Yes, the book, you can show them right now. It's full color front to back. Literally has over 60 diagrams, full pictures. There's formulators, corners that go through all the supplements, resource hacks that go through tips and techniques and devices, chapter summaries. If you're not a big reader with all the bullet points, there's surveys to assess your progress. All that stuff is in there. And then when you go through energyformula.com, you get all the bonuses like this fasting for energy guide, the hidden chapter on natural movement that we talked about, some Q&As, recipe books, all kinds of stuff. And then you can also find me on shawnwells.com, ShawnWells. And then I'm on Instagram at Shawn Wells, again, SHAWN. And I'm on Clubhouse, as I mentioned before, at Biohacking. And yeah, I would love if people read the book, share the book, do reviews on it. I'm super proud of it. And again, not only did I do the book and the ebook and the hardcover, but we just dropped the Audible, and it is me reading it. It's about 8 hours, and I think it's awesome.
Such a great voice for a book.
Thank you, Megan. Zesty Ginger.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shawn. Thank you for being here today. This is amazing information.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on.